Blue Line is a trade magazine for and about law enforcement. In the most recent issue, there's a somewhat fascinating back page column penned by Anil Anand, an inspector with the Toronto Police Force. Oops, I mean service. Anyway, the column is entitled "A Salute to Our Comrades in France," and it pertains to the most recent terrorist attacks in Paris. Now, I wholeheartedly agree with the author's premise, namely the recent terror attacks amount to a vulgar assault against a society that cherishes freedom and civilization. So far, so good. But I found it somewhat disturbing that as I continued to read the column, there was, yet again, a concerted effort to avoid identifying that proverbial 800-pound burqa-clad gorilla in the room, namely radical Islam.
Nothing to see here. Please disperse. Nothing to see here. Please.
Indeed, while the inspector wrote of supposed men of faith who carry out heinous attacks on innocent people, he never singles out the particular faith that's predominantly associated with those who facilitate such heinous attacks. Are we talking Buddhists from Thailand here, Rastafarians, Scientologists? You'd never know if you depended upon this column as your only source of information on the Paris attacks. Indeed, would one pen a column about the atrocities of the Second World War without mentioning the Nazis? Well, maybe the ever-sensitive Justin Trudeau would avoid such an insensitive reference, but I digress. So could it be that the supposed men of faith are part of the same club that is associated with, oh, I don't know, jihads, fatwas, Sharia law, and the suppression of women? And if so, what are the connections to be drawn here? But if this is indeed the faith Inspector Anand is referring to, why does he go out of his way not to name it? Whatever happened to the Joe Friday mantra of just the facts, ma'am? Or is this, sadly, another example of political correctness run amok, i.e., showing tolerance and reasonable accommodation to those individuals who are the most intolerant and the least accommodating? Well, yeah, I think so, especially given that this is the same police service that now allows Muslim cops to wear the hijab. And this is the same police service whose deputy chief, Mike Federico, said he's actually open to the idea of Muslim cops wearing the burqa while on duty. Welcome to Toronto stand, folks. Sharia law are us. Even so, it's downright weird that as Inspector Anand justifiably rails against the cowardice of terrorists, he embraces cowardice himself given the self-censorship on display. In fact, I found it perversely ironic that the photograph accompanying Anand's column depicts several Parisians holding aloft an illuminated sign stating, "Not afraid." But get this, an inspector with the Toronto Police Service is seemingly afraid of naming names when it comes to condemning those who carry out horrible acts of terror. That kind of makes me afraid, not to mention somewhat pessimistic, for how can we address the world's most pressing security crisis if even the agents of law enforcement in a Western society lack the courage to identify the root causes of that crisis? For the Rebel.media, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies.